Quilty is brought to you by
Baby Lock. Baby Lock sewing and long arm machines. From piecing to long arming for the love of sewing. Aurifil. Aurifil Italian thread. Perfectly suited for all your quilting projects. Dear Stella. A unique fabric brand with modern style. Fairfield. Together, we can make beautiful things. Hovels Sewing. Cut to the point with Hovels Sewing. Moda. Make something quilty with Moda fabrics. Northcott. Cottons that feel like silk. Omnigrid. Providing quilters with specialty rulers and accessories for over 30 years. Hi, welcome to Quilty. Today on the show, I have Vanessa Vargas Wilson, also known as the Crafty Gemini. Vanessa, I'm a fangirl.
Oh, please, Mary.
I am, because I have tremendous respect for you. You are an entrepreneur, an accomplished quilter, a chef, a mom.
Please.
A chef.
I cook.
Yes, you cook. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of quilting.
Good.
So I'm glad to finally be here.
It's high time.
Yeah.
And today we're going to talk about working with flannel, and Vanessa's going to help us do a very cool block from a quilt called Storytime. Look for it in your quilting magazine. And tell me about this block, Vanessa.
It's a super simple block, which is something that I recommend for beginners when they're starting off with flannel,
Yeah.
is to kind of start off with a block that is a little bit simpler to make. So we'll show you that's just straight piecing, real easy.
Great.
So this is actually made up of two different blocks, and I'll show you here.
Great.
The entire block is just these two.
Those two units, right?
Half square triangles and two little simple rectangular strips.
You can do that.
Super easy, right?
Totally.
So to get started, we are going to start off with the strips. I think that's an easy way to start.
Yep.
These were cut out of fat quarters, and they're just 2.5 inches by whatever the width of your fabric is.
I'm going to put these down here
Great.
just so they can see easily.
And I'm going to make you do a little work.
Okay,
if you
I
don't
can
mind.
do it. I can do it.
So we got two of them, and these are going to make up the little rectangular strips.
Uh-huh.
So I just want you to put these, you do pretty side of the fabric together.
Cool.
And then just run your 1/4 inch seam across that one side, and then we'll go back and chop them up into the individual units. So that's a quick way to crank out a bunch of the different units that you need for the block in one sitting.
And Vanessa, you were telling me, I didn't know this, but you use a walking foot on your flannel.
I do.
Tell
Because
me more.
it's bulkier than the regular quilting cottons, and it just helps keep everything together in place, feed everything evenly right through the feed dogs, and I think it's just gonna help make things a little bit easier.
And you also, I keep interrupting.
Oh,
I don't want to
you're
do work. See,
Well,
I'm just want to talk.
No, go. You wanna make sure you're doing it right.
Right, exactly. And you sometimes go over a 1/4 inch seam. You give it a little more.
Because sometimes flannel, if you see that the flannel starts to fray a little bit, just bump up that seam allowance if you can, if it's not going to tweak too much with your pattern. And I'll go up maybe 3/8 of an inch. If it's something really easy that you can just go up higher, and just to keep it from fraying.
I told you she was good. I'm kicking the garbage can, but she's got it. Okay. Let me.
So Mary, another thing to keep in mind is not everybody has a walking foot, and if you don't, a good thing to try and do is adjust the presser foot setting or the tension on the presser foot on your machine. Just ease it up a little bit, and that will help, the fabric feed through a little bit easier. Especially if you're used to just sewing with quilting cottons, you probably have it set down to chomp your fabric a little bit tighter.
Yep.
If you loosen it up, the bulkier flannel will ease right through it. Otherwise, if the presser foot is biting down on your fabric too hard, it'll start to distort it, okay, when you're stitching.
Okay, and we have one ready.
That's right.
So I'm gonna trim this down for you, right?
Yes, and then just cut them down into 4.5 inch chunks, and you can see just by one straight seam of stitching, now you'll get a ton of different units that you need for your blocks. And I'll leave you this here to use.
And what do I cut them? 5?
4.5?
4.5. Okay,
Yeah.
sweet. So I'm lining up my bottom there. Cut this. I cut it over a little bit, and then
Go back and trim off the other side. Yeah,
yeah.
we want everything to be nice and flush. And that's a good tip, is to, if you can, just make your blocks or your pieces a little bit bigger, and you can go down and trim them to size, which is a great beginner tip too.
Totally.
You rather have your blocks be a little bit bigger, and you can trim them down to size,
Right.
rather than they be smaller to begin with, because you can't add.
Right, you cannot recut something smaller. So tell me about pressing, because now we're ready to press this.
So the pressing part, since we already talked about the cotton flannel being a little bit bulkier, I like to press my seams open on flannel.
Great.
I don't always get to do that just on regular quilting cottons, especially if I'm in a hurry. But in this case, I do. So I just press it first to set the stitches in place and set the seam. Then I'm going to open it just a little.
Okay.
I'll go back here.
Oh my gosh, I love your fingernails. I just noticed them. They're really
Thanks.
cool.
and then just give it a good press. Try not to like iron this way because then you'll start to distort the fabric. So I just like to kind of press the seam down.
Great.
And that's going to help reduce the bulk for when you start piecing them together. So you can see that's the easy one. Okay.
Right.
We're going to make you work a little bit harder now, Mary, for the half square triangles.
You can do it.
Okay. So first you see the two fabrics that we used, and it's good to have high contrast here.
Yes.
Even if they're busy and they have prints, a lot of times beginners will have a tough time picking out what fabrics, or they don't know if these fabrics are going to match.
Right.
This works because it's from a collection, perfect. But we're going to go with a lighter one and a darker one so we get that high contrast. So we just take one square of each, put them pretty sides touching. And I like to pin it. Do you mind grabbing a couple pins? It just helps keep everything steady.
I'm a pinner.
For when we go to market, So I just pin on one side usually and keep it out of the way. That way I still have this flat side to lay my ruler on. And then we'll go ahead and draw the diagonal. So from one corner of this square unit here to the other one, and I draw that line. Is that what you do as well?
I do. I mean, there's a million ways to make half square triangles as we've gone over on this show, but this is a great method for this one, especially because, well, you need a lot of them and you can just sort of crank them out this way.
Right.
Okay.
Great.
So then,
once you have that line drawn, that is now going to be your guide. So you're going to line it up on your sewing machine to stitch a 1/4 inch to the right of that diagonal line and a 1/4 inch to the left. So you're not messing with that bias yet. Everything is nice. You know, if you need to put more pins, go ahead and do that as well.
Right. And I am a pinner. I mean, I do tend to pin. Some people like never pin.
I have to pin.
You know Luke Haynes, the art quilter, we featured him in the magazine. He doesn't pin anything. Anyway, it's to each his own. So then,
so these have already been stitched down. So we sliced it. So where Mary cut was the line on the diagonal, the one that you initially had drawn. That's your cut line. All right. So once we have that, then we're going to take it over to the pressing surface, and you can see that from the two squares, Mary, we ended up with 2 half square triangles, and the block only needs 4.
Right.
So with 2 setups, 2 of those half square triangle units like that, you'll be done.
Okay, and so then I'm going to let you put that one down here, and then we will be ready to join rows. And I join my rows vertically.
Oh, you do?
And you do them horizontally. So once again, we have 2 quilters, 2 different methods, and that's fine. That's really good.
Always got to find what works for you.
That's right, that's right. I think I just do it that way because my mom did, and you know.
And that's how you learn. Usually that's how you do it, right?
Exactly.
Whatever you learn.
Right.
So this is actually the pattern for this block. It calls for you to trim it down a little bit, which is really helpful with flannel.
Right.
So if you're not sure if it's going to, you know, stretch on you or distort a little bit, or you weren't too sure with your cuts or your stitching, then you're just going to trim this down, okay?
Right.
And you just go around and just trim it down. And I like to trim parallel sides first, okay? So this side, then I'll turn it over, cut here, and then do the opposite sides, and that way everything is symmetrical.
Awesome. Okay, so then you've got your units. This one would go up here, and so you've got rows to join, and you can do it vertically or horizontally.
You just got to pay attention to the orientation, because since we have these high contrast fabrics, you notice which way they're going. So these are all pointing in.
And you will probably at some point do that.
You probably will.
Because I usually sew one row at least in a quilt wrong.
Yeah,
but that's what your seam ripper's for. And actually that's another tip for flannel is that, now you didn't necessarily do this, but I was taught one way to avoid ripping out pain is to lengthen your stitch on a flannel quilt or on flannel piecing. Could be, you know, maybe to a 3.0. Don't have to, but if you got really tiny, tight stitches, they take longer to pull out. Vanessa, in the time we have left, any other tips on flannel? What did we talk about?
Let's see. If it's a lightweight flannel, I like to use spray starch. And it's just going to really, I tell people it turns it into kind of like paper. And when you're stitching through paper, if you ever have, it's nice and stiff. It's not stretching on you or distorting. So it's just going to help you keep everything in place for your stitching. And I do that also before cutting. So I can make sure I get more precise cuts as well.
Cool. And if you're using better flannel, it's better for you. This is really like designer flannel, and it feels so good. Buy the best you can afford. If you can't, you can make a great flannel quilt with anything if you sew it accurately and treat it well. But this nice
Saves
stuff,
you headaches.
You don't have to pre-wash it. I mean, you really don't.
It doesn't even fray.
It doesn't even fray. Vanessa, thank you so much.
No, thank you, Mary.
Please come
back. I had a great time.
Please come back. Okay, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Quilty is brought to you by
Baby Lock. Baby Lock sewing and long arm machines. From piecing to long arming for the love of sewing. Aurifil Italian thread, perfectly suited for all your quilting projects. Dear Stella, a unique fabric brand with modern style. Fairfield, together we can make beautiful things. Hovels Sewing, cut to the point with Hovels Sewing. Moda, make something quilty with Moda fabrics. Northcott, cottons that feel like silk. OmniGrid, providing quilters with specialty rulers and accessories for over 30 years.